Hey there. So these are my after show thoughts for the Angela Carole Brown episode 5. I remember when I first started working with her, like I said in the episode, the first thing I knew about her was that she was from Los Angeles and she was a jazz singer. That's what we really talked about first. And, obviously being a musician, and that's how that conversation kind of came about. And then I learned more about, the orchestra surreal. And then, I think the next thing I found out about her was, that she was a writer, an author. And then following after that was a poet. And then I remember she won an award for this short film that she did. And, for the best in the net. And it just reinforced to me how truly talented, she really is. But there's this weird thing, and it has to do with people that, are in your direct, circumference, in your bubble. And, you know, that can either mean home or work. And if you think about where we spend the majority of our time, it's going to be really one of, especially if you're a creative type, there's really three places that you could do this. Hopefully your art is your work. I mean, that's what we all strive to do, is be able to support ourselves through the thing we love to do the most. And that's why a lot of us will do this, is we believe in it, and we hope it resonates with people enough that it catches on, and that they like it too, to the point where they're willing to, help support you and contribute, and then let you continue to do that thing. That's really the dream. And for many of us, we kind of chase that our whole lives. But there's those two other things. There's home, and then there's work. And I can tell you, at least in my own crazy head, you have to safeguard at least two of those. And what I mean by that is, it is possible to have somebody within your bubble, within your your art bubble, your home bubble, or your work bubble, that is either of a personality type that, puts other people down, you know, tries to make you feel like you're not as good as what you probably are, or they try to elevate themselves to be like the only artistic person or the only true talent. And it's really hard to navigate that. It really is. And you don't want to have it in two places. You have to have some sanctity in at least two of your bubbles. And as a musician, you open yourself up, well, as an artist too. You open yourself up to, criticism, you open yourself up to critique, you open yourself to the myriad of things that run the gambit from love it to hate it. It's in everything in between. And so you don't really want to listen to a bunch of people trying to put you down. So, it's hard to, I mean, if you look at comments and you look at this and look at that, it's hard to not see that. And I don't care who you are, you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So in your home, you can't have that. Or and if you have to, hold down a 9 to 5, then you don't want to have that there as well. And, you know, Angela has probably had, you know maybe a couple instances of people, right in one of those spheres that, kind of is guilty of, that of, kind of, you know, belittling, her talent levels, or, maybe they acknowledge them, but they don't view it as good as their own, kind of a thing, or they just elevate their own skills way above hers. And to me, that's a little bit of a travesty. But I applaud her every day for the fact that she just does not give a rat's ass about that. She's going to do what she wants to do, and she's going to put forth this crazy amount of love and effort into her craft, and she does not give a rat's ass what that naysayer or that person may think. And I think that's incredible. And to a some degree, I've had to deal with some of that. Um, but it's kind of one of those things where it made me think long and hard about that. It was about this protecting yourself. Because here's the here's the here's the truth in the whole thing is, life's short. It really is. And one of the things I can say about that, it just so happens I was talking to my son the other day, my youngest son, and I shared a picture that was actually on Facebook, and your memories, it'll show, things from, a year ago to, however long you've been on Facebook. And this was a 10-year ago picture, and it was a picture that he had drawn for another friend of mine who we'll see an episode for, Heather Thornton, and she was talking about how great it was, because it was a picture about one of the things, a project that she was working on, which was really, really cool. The Earth is a Beautiful Thing. I think that was the name of it. And Billy said something to the extent of, wow, that's a lifetime ago. And it made me chuckle because of the fact that, when you're 20, 10 years is half your life. When you're 60, 30 is. So it's, and I try to explain to him that, the older you get, 10 years is a blink. You won't even, think about it. Like all the time, I'll, say some, Rebecca and I'll be talking about something, and I'll say, yeah, that was probably what, 2 years ago. And she'll go, try again, try like 8 or 9, and I'm always, surprised by that. And that's kind of, made me think about that, just life is short, and you really got to feed the beast. If you got a hankering to paint something, get your butt to the store and buy some paints and some canvases and do it. What are you waiting on? If you like poetry and you want to take a crack at writing it yourself, there are groups out there, just on social media, or whatever, Google, poet circles near me. If you always wanted to play, drum in a drum circle, I don't care if you're 20 or you're 17 or you're 67, do it. Do it. If you want to learn an instrument, do it. Life is way too short to not satisfy these things that are at the core of your soul. And knowing Angela, I know that these things are at the core of her soul and they have to get out. And it doesn't matter if she's designing those Day of the Dead dolls or if she's, writing a new book. She has that same fire burning deep down, which says, look, I don't give like I said, a rat's ass what you think. I'm not doing it for you. And so you may elevate yourself and try to tell yourself you're a better writer than me, but it doesn't matter, because I know my own self-worth and I know who I am, and you're not going to dictate that to me. And I applaud that. I think that is exactly how it should be. Don't let other people define you. You define you. See you around.